In 1973, I graduated from the prestigious Northwestern University Dental School and opened a dental practice in Honesdale, a town of less than 5,000 people located in the extreme northeast corner of Pennsylvania. I looked forward to a successful practice because Honesdale was the hometown of my wife and her family was well known by almost everyone. I thought of myself as an excellent dentist who could solve almost any dental problem that came my way. My confidence soon turned to disappointment, however, when I realized that most of the problems patients sought treatment for were complex. And if I wanted a thriving practice, I needed some advanced training. New York and Philadelphia offered these advanced trainings, but they're so far away that I'd have to close the office when I wanted to go to one of those things. I considered different ways to solve that problem, and, well, my brilliant solution that made the most sense at the time anyway, well, just get a private pilot's license and fly yourself. And, of course, I was able to find a CFI, well, that's a certified flight instructor who was willing to teach me, and the lessons began. After the required 20 hours of learning the procedures and laws and rules and all that sort of stuff, I found myself zooming around the sky, and, man, it was exciting. I just really loved it. As a matter of fact, there were times when I imagined myself a fighter pilot, chasing down enemy aircraft. So, as I neared the end of the required 20 hours of in-flight training, I knew the solo flight would be required, but I figured, well, what the hell, is going to be a piece of cake. Was I surprised. On November 12th, 1976, we taxied to the end of the runway as usual. I expected the usual okay for takeoff from my CFI. However, he surprised the hell out of me when he jumped out the plane, looked me in the eye, and said, well, today's the day. Make 3 takeoffs and landings and I'll be waiting. Slammed the door shut, locked it, and walked away. Okay, well, what now, pussycat? This was it. Win, lose, or... wait a minute here. There's no draw. Either complete the requirement or crash in a ball of fire. My mind, racing with all these thoughts and fear of dying, and, I realized that was a distinct possibility. But, all of a sudden, thought popped into my head. I better make a decision faster. I'm going to run out of gas, and then I'd really feel stupid. And at that moment, my hand advanced the throttle as far as it would go. The engine roared, the plane started to roll down the runway, and I was on my way. Well, the speed increased quickly, and I reached that point of go or no go, that point where you either pull back on the yoke and take off, or you kill the engine, slam on the brakes, and pray to God you can stop before the end of the runway. Well, for me, there was only one choice. I pulled back on the yoke, and I remember very distinctly the thought in my mind. I know I could do this, climb to 1,000 feet, circle the airport, and land. What could be simpler than that? Of course, I thought of other possibilities, such as crashing into an alien spaceship or a wing falling off. But as I reached 1,000 feet and leveled off, all of my thoughts turned to the job at hand. And as I landed for the 3rd time and I taxied to the plane's parking spot, I felt exhilarated. I was just jumping for joy. I had faced a challenge and I won. And, well, after I parked, I jumped out of the plane. My CFI gave me a hug. And then proceeded to cut off my shirt tail, as was the custom when one successfully completes their first solo flight. However, that's not the end of it. While this was a great victory, and I was proud of myself, I learned a much more important lesson. After several flights to these advanced trainings, I discovered there was no time saved at all. When I left the house, checked in at the hotel, took the course, and drove home. Flying, on the other hand, required many more steps, and the time of the flight was greatly affected by the wind. After a short time and several flights, it was obvious that the time, whether flying or driving, was almost exactly the same. My takeaway from, this experience, and one of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned in my life, and I've never forgotten. When faced with an obstacle or problem, be sure to thoroughly research all the possible solutions. Your chosen solution may have unintended consequences or even collateral damage. I failed to do this, and it ended up costing me a whole lot more in the end. Well, the end of the story is happily because I obtained the advanced training that I needed in another way. And the story of my practice has a happy ending.